Soldiers of the Blessed Emperor, I am Hestia Prime.
Hello Hestia, nice to meet you. My name is Couch Coop. I was going to call this video Darktide, right? Clever play on Darktide and Vermintide too. We are going to look at both games. We're going to kind of hold them up against each other. It's been 2 years since I stepped into Darktide and 4 years since I fired up Vermintide 2. And get this, I have it on PC, I have it on the PlayStation 5. It's a smorgasbord of footage, copious amounts of violence with a single-handed, all dual-wielded weapon. And as the prophecy demands it, we need to have a Clockwork Orange dubstep remix on the intro. Can I just ask, Coop, I'm sorry, what in the hell has Warhammer got anything to do with Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange? Something, ultra violence. Okay, mate, fair enough.
Could have gone tidier, but she got the job done.
There's a couple of reasons I've put Vermintide 2 on the channel in 2025. It's had a huge amount of material added to it free of charge. Also had some paid DLC and loads of new characters added, including a badass dwarf. Need I say more? But the cherry for me is a new roguelite mode. I say new, probably about 2023, and you get a left to right scrolling map which allows you to choose different directions. There's not that many, but you do have a choice of 3 or 4. It might be a shop, it might be a tough level, it might be a Nurgle infested setup. So I was really enjoying that aspect. Vermintide 2 also is one of these PS4 games that hasn't had a PlayStation 5 or proper 9th gen release brackets on the Sony side. Everything you're looking at here is on the HD. However, we had a patch 123, which is easy to remember, which pushes this game to 4K and 60 frames per second. It is pretty amazing. If you have clear memories of how this game looked on 8th gen in your brain, you might be mildly impressed with what you're seeing here. I figured, because like a lunatic way back in the day, when I had more money than sense, I brought this on Steam as well. I loved it so much. In actual fact, I think the Steam release pipped the console version. That may have been why I went to that PC purchase, but I ran it on a gaming laptop back then. So all of this is amazing, but let's have a look at how it fares up on the old GTX 1660. The game has got some age now, so having it on slightly higher options was definitely a thing.
Try not to damage that troll. That's a team, you bitch. Troll's gonna throw off! Sigma, I am laid low.
Some stutter, most of that is probably my end, but I think this is testament to how good that patch actually was for an 8th generation to run on a 9th gen machine, particularly with a busy game like Vermintide 2. If you're not aware about what this game is all about, it's essentially a hack and slash and a range FPS that revolves around hordes of stuff. It isn't too dissimilar to something like Left 4 Dead. It really promotes the online play and 3 other human players being with you, but Vermintide 2 very kindly has excellent bots in it. They're actually amazing, and I got so far into that campaign completely offline, it was awesome. And all of this roguelike stuff, again, completely offline.
A point of no return.
Okay, let's swing to Darktide quickly. Remember me talking about the game's message being like Hordy and Left 4 Dead-y? That's enough ease for a sentence. It also sports an almost AI-like director. You'll remember that tagline when Left 4 Dead 2 and 1 came out. So the game always had this strange, never the same setup twice, with a lot of where the hordes were going to appear and how it was all structured with racing through these levels. So having Vermintide 2 add an extra layer to that randomness, being it the levels or the tasks or which directions are going on that little roguelite map, is definitely a sweetener. This game took ages to come out on console. Fatshark really took their time with getting it onto the PlayStation and Xbox. Then that got me thinking that's exactly what happened with Vermintide 2, and then it got me thinking this game's been out for 2 years, and when it launched it was so anticipated. The trailers did look absolutely amazing. The idea of Fatshark handling a 40k shooter was just the stuff of dreams, and it sort of delivered, I would say, about 65 to 70% of what it promised from a lot of that original source material. The game is steeped in a bit of grind, however, and again it really does focus on 4 human players being in that map. It doesn't throw in bots as smoothly as Vermintide 2, and I don't think it really wants to. I remember we were all waiting around for when it was going to add the AI bots so that you could just go in if no one was online. You didn't have to sit in matchmaking. It should have got to that a lot sooner, but it did in the end. But again, I don't see much of it on my revisit. It was human wall to wall, which is not a terrible thing. I just always like an offline option, full stop. You know what I mean? That just makes me feel a lot safer, particularly with my internet. I do want to apologise for being full vanilla brawler on the majority of this footage with Vermintide 2. It's the character that I've got experience with, and I had a little bit of XP saved up on the old PSN profile, but I want to make the point that the range, elf and the mage builds are absolutely awesome. They're amazing, they're spectacular, and having them as support, AI controlled, also allows you to see some of the out and out badassery, for want of a better term, coming out of that little dwarf dude and the witch, and also the conversations between all of them is epic. They've done really well with a lot of the voice lines. The regional accents are absolutely spot on.
Shield vermin, watch out! I'll block them! Time to steal this week.
You also might be thinking, isn't this just like a one button swing and go, stuff gets really boring after a while with this build? Well, it's actually got quite a lot of nuance, particularly with the shield. You've got an L2 on guard, and there's a move that you can do whilst guarding. You can also shove, you can also build on swing and do quick stabs, and you need to sort of mesh that up with your gameplay. The pushbacks are not unlimited, and of course you've got your special on L1, which can be switched out depending on what class you want to develop. And that brings me back to the brawler build, is that they have a really cool hunter variant, and that's where things get very interesting when you develop the different classes within those character types. Kudos for having little ritual trials and challenges within these roguelite levels as well. One of the major things which will also dawn on you is that if you're 35 minutes into this and you've done a few maps and you're heading towards the finale, which is like a big arena, you can't actually walk away. There's no real step back, have a look at something else. You are very much committed, and that also swings on to death. So once it's over, it is well and truly over, and you are going back to the start icon on that left to right overhead map. But as I anticipated, and one of the main reasons I put this video together, look at this activity. It is absolutely stunning. This game looks so good on a PlayStation 5. In actual fact, this is one of the better 9th generation backwards compatible patches I've ever had the pleasure of playing. Remnant 1 was up there until they nerfed the damn thing. So notice we've got these like upgrade points, and there'll be sword, there'll be gun, there'll be armor related, and you're collecting these coins as you go along. You're spending them on upgrades and switching out your entire weapon setup if you want to. But remember, those coins are also spent in the shop on the overhead map. I found that out by squandering them on stuff I technically didn't need. Still love this long grass level. Isn't this supposed to be a comparison video? It's just been 7 minutes of you blabbering on about that roguelite mode in Vermintide 2. Can we go back to Darktide, please, and start seeing its praises a little bit?
Concentrated fire!
You might be able to get a look at one of the new classes here. It's a bit like the Necromunda dude with the dog, and that looks pretty damn handy. I'm not sure if it's paid DLC or just something you can unlock through progression, but it looks pretty damn amazing. I'm also noticing some new chaos enemy types with dual wielding like small axes. There seems to be more like medieval armored dudes coming at you, which is exactly what I was looking for. This game hasn't had the facelift I imagined it would after staying away from it for 2 years, but I am noticing minor areas of change and an injection of some new content. This is, can you believe, still running on the old GTX 1660. This is the PC version of Darktide. I have yet to get a PlayStation 5 physical. I don't even think there's one around, but I need to get it on the channel on a true 9th gen console. I do actually love the game, and it does play fantastically well in co-op with mates. If you're communicating all the time, the way it changes up a lot of the hordes, it always keeps you on your toes, and it gives you some pretty damn good rewards. It is too stingy on that money, however, still. And some of the cosmetics, particularly for the guardsmen, are an absolute joke. Sticking sort of on the gun subject, Vermintide 2 has got an incredible amount of projectile weapons, particularly for the huntsman mercenary dude. You've almost got a machine gun setup, there's blunderbusses, you get this great shotgun. This roguelite mode allows a bigger rotation in game for you to look at and experiment with different guns and combinations of those weapons with your handheld melee stuff. And this is the little loot dude, right, from Golden Axe. He's been around in gaming for nearly 40 years. He turns up in Diablo at some point as well. Little shit. Would you recommend going back to either of these games now in 2025? 100% hell yes, particularly if you've got a group of you and you haven't gone to these games before. This Vermintide 2 roguelike mode has completely refreshed the game for me and allows me to see a bigger vertical slice in a shorter time, and I've got that massive risk reward with the permadeath, but you do get some XP and some loot just for competing, even if you don't get to the end of that roguelike map structure. I also feel that Darktide would completely benefit from a system like the one in Vermintide 2 with the roguelike setup. I think there's no harm in concentrating on making that single player even. There's nothing wrong with being in a horde-like mode by yourself. I'm sure loads of you played Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 solo for massive swathes of time. A lot of these games just aren't built for it from the ground up, but we might see some new modes within Darktide in the future. It took them, I just had to Google that, Vermintide 2, 2018, 7 years for them to come up with a cool mode like we have in the current game. So fingers crossed that Fatshark might see the popularity of that. I think they do this stuff to sort of pull people back to a potentially barren online format. They come up with a new mode and people rush back and fire the game up. We might have to see Darktide dip a bit on player count before they come up with some new ideas. This is a level with some Nurgle infected Skaven in it. They pop and basically cause a gas. This would normally be a special unit that would deliver this sort of punishment, but it's everywhere all over this map. I loved that change up. Which one of these games is better? Well, that's a really difficult question. The quick answer is, if there's a group of you, obviously go to Darktide because those AI bots are basically non-existent. If you want to solo something like this, go for it with Vermintide 2. It's a thoroughly enjoyable experience on your own. But again, it's a double win because as soon as there's more than one of you, things just get even better. It works incredibly as a co-op online game. I am going to try and get hold of Darktide on PlayStation 5. I do want to see how that actually performs and whether or not they push it harder than the spec on my current PC setup. There's just something amazing about some of the bosses and the guns and the effects, and of course it's a lot newer than Vermintide 2 on an engine front. I do also completely love making Warhammer content. I will put the playlist in the description. I think my newest next Warhammer review is Rogue Trader, the turn-based game, which is not terrible by a long stretch. I'm also looking at Gothic Armada 2 again, because I got that way back and fired it up recently and just thought, what the hell is this game all about? My name was, of course, CouchCube. I very much look forward to seeing you down there. I'll put the outro on, yeah, the old Dubber Steppers Maximus.